For the red light, and we're live.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Waiver Wired podcast. If I sound a little rough today, it's because I'm doing the show from Las Vegas. Eddie, last time I was in Las Vegas, you were with me. I think we had a pretty late night, one of those nights too. I feel like we almost had a bachelor weekend. We ended up in some hotel suite that was like too low. Do you remember this?
I do. We were we were in Ken's room, friend of the pod, Ken.
Okay.
And his I believe Caesars calls it the hangover suite. It's like a
The
two
hangover
floor,
suite. Yeah.
kind of like it has a room with like windows, like 360. You could see all of Las Vegas. So yeah, we were us, Sal, Dave, Martin, a few others. We were all together at Caesars very late at night for Sal's 50th birthday, which was an A+ time.
That was amazing. If you guys are watching this right now on Twitter, please jump into our YouTube or our Twitch and comment, and let's do this show together. This should totally be your show, our show. We'll talk some fantasy stuff. We're going to recap the Super Bowl. We're going to recap our bets. We're going to recap our fantasy postseason. But we want this to be your show. And if you want to advise me not to eat the cake out of the vending machine outside my elevator bank, things like that's useful, whatever you think. Literally though, Eddie, like I was talking with Adam Ronis, who was on our
Yeah.
pod, and he's like, God, I just wanted to go get some fresh fruit, and all there is sugar everywhere. And I was like, yeah. And I started noticing it, and I was walking back this morning from getting my coffee, and I was like, oh my God, literally outside our elevator bank is a donut shop and a vending machine with cake. I was like, first of all, how did I not notice this at 3 a.m. when I was coming back to my room? Glad I didn't. But now I know it's there, and that's really tempting. I'm sorry, but it looks good too. It's probably not.
Vegas does a
But
great job of just pumping in the oxygen, getting rid of the
enabling.
windows, putting in baked goods everywhere. So then you walk around, you can't find anything healthy, nothing that's nothing green, no fruits or anything
No,
like that. It's all processed stuff. And you're like, you know what? I don't see the light
no.
of day. And this bakery is right here. I'm gonna grab some sugar treats for myself and then hit the tables.
Now I learned today because I had to go get Advil this morning.
Just a shoulder thing. That's all it was. Yeah,
Yeah, it was just a shoulder. It
yeah,
was Relief Factor or Advil.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
know Joe Namath wasn't here to sell me anything, so I went with the Advil. So I went to like the convenience store downstairs, and I saw there was a sign that said you had to be 21 to purchase booze, obviously, and cigarettes according to federal law. How did I not know that they changed the rule about smoking to 21, and apparently it's a federal law? Did you know that?
I had no idea. I
Yeah,
mean, I grew up with kids in middle school smoking. I thought it was like, yeah,
right.
13. Yeah, I have no
I thought
idea
it
it was
was like
21.
18.
Yeah.
And so I asked the lady, I'm like, when did they change this law? She's like, a couple of years ago. And I was
Wow.
like, God, like I'm really not hip, not cool. I have no idea what's going on. But it is interesting, Eddie. Here in Las Vegas right now, you can go to Caesars Sportsbook and place a bet for Tom Brady to be MVP next year, plus 4,500. And here's the good part. If he doesn't play a snap, you get refunded.
I did see that. I just feel like you have to take that bet if you're going to
I
get
do
the
too.
refund. And people have been, a lot of Dave especially has been saying he's going to be a 49er. It's one of those things where it's not going to hurt you if you throw a bet down. And I mean, he had look at the season he had. Like if I had an MVP vote, I would have given it to probably Cooper Cup, but I would have had Brady over Aaron Rodgers personally. So I mean, yeah, there's no reason not to bet on him.
I mean, honestly, I'm trying to, you guys, if you're watching this seriously, jump in the YouTube or the Twitch because I want to know what you guys think about whether Tom Brady is coming back. Because we had on this pod, we had the whole breakout where I was like, he's not retiring. It's ridiculous. He's top of his game. And then he retired, made me look like a doofus. But I still kind of think he's not retiring. Like, I just kind of want to be right about this, is what I'm saying.
It's hard to retire when you're at the top of your game. No, I don't blame you. But when on the top of your game, it's hard to walk away because you're gonna get, like maybe now in February, February 17th, he's not gonna have the itch. I'm sure he's enjoying the sun
Right.
somewhere, and maybe not March. And then April, slightly, guys are starting to work out again. May, even a little bit more. I know they're doing the optional workouts, and by June, July, he's gonna be like, man, I kind of miss competing with the guys. I don't think any NFL player misses the off season, but for a guy like Tom Brady, he does take care of his body. He'll be in fine shape, and when you're throwing for the way he's throwing the football, still, the itch is gonna come back very, very soon.
I mean, what's it like for Tom Brady when he comes to Vegas? Like, what does he eat?
I mean,
there's nothing he can eat.
you guys wanted fruit. He doesn't even want fruit. I don't think he can
I know
eat
he
the
doesn't even want a
strawberries and
strawberry.
the avocados. He needs like an avocado
What
tree or
kind of a
something.
psycho doesn't eat strawberries? I mean, I understand not eating bananas, as we've discussed, but I think you have to actually be a psychopath to not like strawberries.
Especially it's strawberry, strawberry flavored things are one of the most
Shortcake,
popular. Yeah, it's very odd to
chocolate
cut
dipped
that out.
strawberries.
Yeah,
Does Giselle not get chocolate dipped strawberries? I feel like she's earned that.
this is why he's going to
What's
come
wrong with
back and
him?
play. He's just tired of
He's
going to the
gotta
grocery store and avoiding strawberry.
Look, I told you, no woman wants a 40-year-old man at home with her all day, every day. It seems like a good idea, but within 6 weeks, she's going to be like, honey, go back to work. Just go. Get out of here. I don't need you around. I think Tom Brady comes back. Whether it will be this year or some year in the future, who knows? But I can't see it. And he always said he wanted to play to 45. So I don't know. Should we talk Super Bowl?
Let's get into it.
So I had such a great betting day for Super Bowl, and I really needed it to be my final day. As you know, we made our picks, and I think Dave and I were the two that said we took the Bengals with the points, but we took the Rams to win. So we were seeing 3 points or less, and we both got it. And I'm kind of bummed because you had asked for our final score prediction, and I originally said 23-20, and then I changed it to 24-23, didn't I, or something like that?
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, like I really almost had it, but I had kind of worked it out in my head what I thought was going to happen. So that was awesome. And I took the under. We took the under on the pod, right?
We did, yes. I had a fairly good betting day as well. I took the under. I took the Bengals plus the points. I had a few other props that hit. It was a nice, lucrative day for Old Eddie Spaghetti.
It was a good day. Matt Stafford, unfortunately, did throw the 2 interceptions. I thought he would keep it to 1, but he threw the 2. And in sad news, though, Joe Mixon did have a good day, as we predicted. Unfortunately, he threw the pass instead of catching the pass. And this cost us the waiver, the extra points fantasy football championship, essentially, basically, because what did we lose by, like 3 points?
Yeah, and every cat he was getting targeted
so
a bunch of the people who I was with, the people who I was with watching the game, they knew of that. My prop bets, and they knew that we needed Mixon to perform well, and they were targeting him through the air, but he had like 5 catches for 0 yards. I mean, if he actually had, and I lost that over, I think I got it at 24.5, 25.5 his receiving yards over. I mean, if he just was getting, it should have been a winner because he was getting targeted. And if he was just gaining any sort of yards after, catching the football, we would have won that league. And I would say the same thing too. Yeah, him throwing the ball instead of catching in the end zone definitely hurt us. But I would have, if you told me Mixon has 5 catches, I'm like, well, the over's hitting,
we're good,
and we win the league. So that was brutal.
It was such a bummer. Totally terrible, bad beat. We should have had that one. And we had Mixon and Toby in the Covered in Glory podcast. They had Chase, and so they just edged us out. So congratulations to the Covered in Glory podcast. I think the most important thing, though, is that we didn't come in last. And Martin did. Have we determined his fate? Because one thing I have learned, is I do not ever want to come in last in any extra points competition. Because seriously, drinking Scott's bathwater, these are the level of punishments you receive if you come in last. I will make sure I win. I mean, it is seriously inspiring to never lose the kind of punishments you guys inflict on last place people. So do we know what Martin has to do?
I think that he has to still dig into the cap of consequences, and we've thrown at some stuff. I know they were discussing it a bit on the last DP, but yeah, that's the scary part of dealing with like Sal and others here is there's always some kind of trick or prank looming, and I almost like regret bringing up that I would drink Scott's bathwater because I feel like down the road I'm gonna be forced into it. Although
I
there was a
feel like
loser
you
for
are.
that, but I'm very glad that we did not lose. Team Waiver Wire did not lose the fantasy playoff league,
We did
and
not.
I'm also glad I did not lose the Cash or Splash challenge because it would not be a good ending.
Would not be a good ending. Now I just silver lining here. So though we did lose the extra points podcast, I think this is the best story. I'm going to tell it because you don't realize, you don't know what I'm going to say. This is great. So if you've been listening to the Waiver Wire podcast, you know that we had our extra points league, and basically how that worked is we had one player from each team, and that's it. And you just rode them out. There was no switching. We just drafted one lineup. It was like a best ball, right? Essentially. And so we drafted well. As I said, we finished like 3 points behind. So all good. But that was the main one we focused on. And then I had, before we set up our extra points league, I had gone and thrown us in a lineup over at the NFFC. And I just put a $40 lineup in because I was just thinking this would be fun for our podcast. And we can like play it and build it and talk about it. Totally just thinking more about content and fun, right? So we kind of did it as an afterthought. Like our main thing was extra points. We are like, oh, we kind of, I threw it together, the lineup, and I was like, what do you think? And you're like, yeah, I agree, blah, 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 and whatever. So the whole time I'm texting you. So last week we were in 26th out of 2,000 teams. I was like, this is pretty good. And then during the game, I texted you partway through, and I think we'd moved up to 10th. And you were like, wow, that's amazing. And I was like, yeah. And by the end, Eddie, I logged in. We were in 3rd place. So still at this point, like I'm texting, I'm like, we got 3rd place. And you're like, that's awesome. And I'm like, I don't think Eddie knows what just happened. I don't think he realizes that this is the NFFC. So like, it's not like that's awesome. It's like, Eddie don't have to drink Scott's bathwater anymore. I was like, I guess I never told him that I paid an entry fee. Like he probably didn't realize what was going on. So I log in and I send in the price structure, and I was like, Eddie, I think we just won $5,500. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, basically it was just fun and we had great content. And in the end, like, you are not drinking Scott's bathwater. I told you I was going to talk to Sal about getting your raise. I was going to make sure it happened, and we did it, Eddie. You do not have to do it.
So from my perspective, well, yeah, that getting that text was just like I was already happy with a lot of my FanDuel bets hit, and I was like, it was a good day. And then you text this, and I like almost couldn't process it because to rewind back to when we had this team, and boy, oh boy, am I lucky that we were on the same page with I know there were some players that we were questioning this guy over this guy, and I know you explained like the multiplier stuff, and I was like, we were pretty much on the same page with our visions on this fantasy playoff and who are the best players to play. I'm so thankful. I'm like, now let's swap out this guy for this guy. We wouldn't have finished 3rd, but yeah, like I didn't know necessarily the buy-in, like the ultimate outcome of this. And I know after the first round, there were so many teams. I was like, boy, you know, keep scrolling to find where our team was highlighted. And I was like, oh, we'll see what happens. Like I'm, there's still a lot of weeks left of the playoffs. And like you said, we were hyper focused on this extra points league because one, I think the fans care about our content and obviously involving all the other shows. And we were kicking tail on that one. We felt pretty good about that one. So that one kind of the other one kind of fell in the back burner. So then as we keep getting better and we, like I said, we picked the right players, had the multipliers, and then to end up where we did is just, I mean, it's mind boggling.
It was awesome. Honestly, it was so much fun. And the one thing is, if we had played Chase instead of Acres, which is the thing we were debating, we decided to roll with Acres kind of as a contrarian play, we would have finished in 2nd.
Wow.
But that would have only gotten us $500 more. First place got 20 grand. We weren't really, we couldn't catch him. However, I'm going to give you some good news, bad news. So I didn't enter the $150 entry because we were just doing it for content. Like I was like, oh, this will just be fun. I wasn't really thinking we were going to, I wasn't thinking about being a high stakes fantasy football player, which by the way, congratulations. You are, I would say you're officially a high stakes fantasy football player now.
Well,
our score, Eddie, would have finished 2nd in that league, not 3rd, 2nd. And do you know what the grand prize was in that league?
If it was $150 buy-in, I mean, it's probably what, 100 grand.
120 grand.
Ugh.
And we would have been second. So I think it was like 80 or something. I don't know. So I didn't, it's like good news, bad news. I was kicking myself. I was like, oh my God, like, why didn't I enter the big contest? There was a few less players. It was like 1,700 players instead of 2,000, I think. Because it's just a little, higher barrier of entry.
Mhm.
But I just wasn't thinking, again, I was just kind of like, this will be fun because we'll have a team and we can talk about it, we can debate, and we'll have the multipliers. And I wasn't actually thinking about winning money. And so sorry.
No, I mean, we can't look at it that way, because obviously, I feel like if we did that, things would have changed. And I'll apologize for being anti Jamar Chase, and that was like one point of
No, I was too. No, we agreed. We
yeah,
agreed.
and
We
I
agreed.
was telling the folks I was watching with, and I was like, the only way I could really see Chase having a big game is like if he breaks one, if he breaks a tackle and goes, because like I was also right in that that
Yeah.
Higgins would have the better
Well,
receiving game, and
we had a 3 times multiplier on Higgins.
Mhm.
So that was a big deal. And McPherson too we had a multiplier on him, 3 times multiplier, I think it was. Anyway, here's the only bad news, Eddie. So I went to claim our prize, and first of all, they have to send it to you in a paper check.
Mhm.
So it's going to take a while. But second, I actually haven't done the claim form yet because I have to fill out a tax form. This is the only bummer. I'm like, well, crap. I have to pay taxes on this now. So anyway, I got to fill out the forms, all that, blah, 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 blah. Woe is me. When you gamble, you have to pay taxes on it. It's an awesome problem to have, but so I have to deal with that. But anyway, we're gonna settle up and
And
not
also,
drinking Scott's
well,
bathwater.
that's a great plus, and also it is crazy that if the fans of the show, people who went back and watched the show, it's like we kind of built the roster, relatively speaking, like live on the fly
Live on the
on
pod.
air. So I mean, if you were watching week in week out, like you saw us build this roster that, like I said, thankfully that we mostly agreed on. That got us into the position that we are in that league, in both leagues. So that's it's fun, and I'll never not do fantasy playoffs, leagues ever again. It was
Again.
awesome.
Yeah, was this your first time doing it?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
never really
it's
knew.
fun.
They weren't as widely talked about or as
They're not.
accessible until recently, and it's a great idea.
I say we bring them back. You know why? Because first of all, it's short. There's no reason that fantasy football has to be over. It's short. You just got like 4 or 5 weeks. I guess 5 weeks because you have to wait for the break. But that's kind of fun because sometimes with the fantasy season, it grinds, it grinds, it grinds. So you have this short thing. And the second reason why is you have to also think about it from a betting standpoint. It's even more gamification than fantasy, if you will. It's like thinking about, okay, well, I'm pretty sure these guys are going to make it this far and this and this. And so it's really fun to put all your skills together, because I think it really does involve betting and gambling skills combined with your fantasy skills. It's different than postseason because you lose players, right?
Right, and it's one of those things too where I think you could potentially do regular season fantasy. You could draft a lineup, you could set a lineup and leave it. But I think with the playoffs, really, it does show if you are watching the games, you are paying attention to these teams and who their usages and their offensive schemes and how the matchups. I think that does play like way more into effect than it does maybe during the regular season fantasy, where you can kind of get lucky in a sense. Your draft spot, like you're ordering the waiver pickups, but the playoff one, it kind of exposes people who are not watching the games and knows what's going on. And I think almost to a fault, you can kind of psych yourself out of some players. But I do feel like that if you're locked in and you know what these teams are doing, you have a good shot to compete in these kind of leagues.
Yeah, and they're lots of fun. So always play them, and they're very, very inexpensive. Like the $40 one was actually kind of an expensive one. You can find them for free. You can find them for really low barrier of entry, and it keeps it a lot of fun. We just set up our own. We went over to Fantasy Postseason, plug for Fantasy Postseason, shout out. And Harry actually came up with the concept. And
Mhm.
Sal was like, "Can you do this?" I'm like, "I'm pretty sure." He's like, "We'll have to tabulate it by hand." I was like, "Oh no, we can't do that. We're just that's a pain in the butt. Let's just let some software company do it for us. Like we don't want to do it." So I popped over to Fantasy Postseason, and it was really easy to set up, and they were great. Their technical support was great. So shout out to you guys. Thanks for hosting our playoff league, and next year fantasy postseason, our request is that we can link back and let our viewers track us and watch us and see the competition. So that's on our wish list. If you guys can do it, please, that'd be awesome. I
Yeah,
think they
that'd be
will.
great. I'm really looking forward to it. It was a great idea. Shout out to Harry and for them for helping us out and sort everything. I mean, it was a ton of fun.
It was a ton of fun. It was a ton of fun. You know what else is going to be a ton of fun? Mike McDaniel in Miami. Mike McDaniel's in Miami. I
Hmm.
really do. I think, is it McDaniel or McDaniels? McDaniels.
I think
Why?
it's not plural. He's a
It's
singular
McDaniel.
McDaniel.
I'm like,
Yeah.
why am I making up his name? I'm sorry. 3 a.m. I was up till 3 a.m. I'm at the FSGA conference, and so last night I was talking with Jeff Ratcliffe and Pat Mayo. We are down there talking, and Ratcliffe is the biggest Mike McDaniel fanboy. He is 100% in. And I mean, you have to love any coach that comes out and says, start Jalen Waddle in fantasy. Just get, whoa. Now that is the opposite of what Kyle Shanahan ever did for us, right? Like we're always guessing with Kyle Shanahan, like, is it going to be Eli Mitchell? Is it going to be Trey Sermon? Is it going to be JaMychal Hasty? Like, what's going on? And he wouldn't tell us. Luckily, we were able to figure out Eli was his guy. But historically, you never knew. Is it going to be Matt Breida? Is it going to be Raheem Mostert? But whoever it was good. Mike McDaniel's already coming out saying like, hey, the way to win games is to get the ball in your best player's hands and find a way. And Jalen Waddle was already fantastic rookie season. I mean, only because Jamar Chase is so insane are we not talking about him being a candidate for offensive rookie of the year, because ordinarily he would be a candidate actually considered.
Sure.
I'm sure he had plus odds, but he was never going to win it because Jamar Chase and Mac Jones, I guess. But I digress. It's really interesting. I'm excited about Mike McDaniel there because now I'm thinking about, oh my God, is Jalen Waddle the next Deebo Samuel?
I mean, he had 140 targets, I think, last year. I mean, it's just an
I mean,
crazy amount of targets.
Tua loves him. They're
Mhm.
going to open up Tua. And I believe that another thing that's interesting to me is what they're going to do with their run game. Like they have to basically invent it. And is it suddenly going to become very viable because it's a Kyle Shanahan-like run game? And McDaniel has already said, like, I really think it opens up for Waddle so many more opportunities, opens it up for Tua so many more opportunities if we get a viable run game. So I'm kind of like, whoever it is,
Mhm.
if it's like, I don't know, random guy that they bring up from the practice squad, I feel like it could be a great value pick in your drafts.
Well, if we learn anything from the 49ers, it doesn't matter if,
Right.
who's running back, me,
Doesn't
you,
matter.
Sal,
Don't
Harry,
need
anyone can be
that
running back.
name.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well, I don't know about Harry, but
oh, yeah. Uh, I am a little,
Megan Connolly could be running back.
she's almost too
She's like,
talented for the 49ers.
she's
She's
so
too
talented.
fast. Yeah.
She's
With all those marathon wins, the Dolphins and Niners will say, no, we need somebody who's worse. But the one thing I would like to see with Tua, and I still am a Tua believer. I've watching him a ton in college. I feel like a lot of lateral throws. I'd like to see them take more downfield chances. I feel like you could watch some of their Dolphins like offensive possessions, and like they're running like 10 plays and they move like 25 yards. And I
right.
think they have obviously Waddle is the number one guy. I think Gesicki at tight end could be a great option in fantasy. If is he going to become a Kittle 2.0 now that we have a 49ers guy in there? Like you're saying too, if two is better and Waddle's a legitimate threat and Gesicki's a legitimate threat, it'll make the run game easier. Whoever that is. Last year they had a bunch of guys with Gaskin and Lindsey and Duke John. I mean, they're rotating a bunch of different backs in there. Everyone thinks McDaniel's a genius, and they do have some interesting pieces. And I'm not going to go out on a limb and say the Dolphins could be a threat this upcoming year, but the Bills are losing. They lost Daboll. They lost their assistant GM. Like it's always hard to get back to where you were. Mac Jones kind of slid a little bit the last end of the regular season, so they're going to be in the mix. I think for the AFC.
I would take a futures bet on them.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. One injury to someone on the Bills could change that a lot. I don't have a lot of. I think Mac Jones was fine. I don't have major confidence in the Patriots. And again, as you said, like this is going to be the first time in a while we've seen an offensive-minded coach in Miami, and Brian Flores was excellent I mean, he was a winning coach for them. They got a lot done, but having an offensive mind might open it up even a little bit more for those offensive players for fantasy. And that could just end up working out in real football terms too. I mean, for God's sakes, second half of the season, if they had started the first half of the season like they were second half of the season, they would have won the division. They were phenomenal. They were on a roll. So a lot of talent there. I'm excited. Let's look up what the futures are right now, actually. Let me give you some futures bets, actually. Next year's Super Bowl. Chiefs 650. Bills 700. I'm just doing these from memory. I think it's at Rams 900. Bengals. Here, let me get you the make sure that they're the same. Yeah, 650, 700. Rams 900, still the same. Bengals 1200. Packers 1400. San Francisco 1400. Cowboys 1600. Buccaneers 2000. Any of those interesting to you? Here's what's interesting to me. Broncos 2000. I think that's too high. Titans 2000. Ravens 2000. Chargers 2200. Where are the Dolphins? Plus 4,000 to win the Super Bowl. I mean, it's a super, super long shot because they have to get through the AFC. It's a much harder side of the bracket. But you're muted.
Yeah, I'm as I was giving my point, I gave my way too early Super Bowl prediction on -3, and I kind of worked it out. And I think if you look at it, the NFC is a lot easier to
easier
kind of process. Well, number one, the shocking thing is the Rams are not like, when was the last time you've seen a Super Bowl like champion not be the odds-on favorite to win to follow the next year? Usually that's what happens. The fact that they are, third or fourth, and depending on which book you look at, but if you look at the NFC, people are questioning, is Sean McVay going to come back? Is Aaron Donald? I know Aaron Donald said he wants to run it back. Is Odell towards ACL? There's problems in Arizona with Kyler, and people say that Russ is going to leave Seattle. So the NFC West all of a sudden is looking a little, different. Obviously now too with the 49ers we're just talking about, they lost McDaniel, and they're going to have to move on to Trey Lance if Tom Brady doesn't show up there. NFC South, obviously no Tom Brady as of now, so that division isn't looking that great. Rodgers in the NFC North, is he going to stay? Who knows? No real other,
that's why they broke
there.
out. She's like, screw this. I'm not living in Wisconsin.
And I'm done with
your
Green
hairy
Bay.
feet.
But then so the one team that's still relatively stable in terms of their roster are the Dallas Cowboys, and I think that your division is still the easiest to win. And I said that I like the Cowboys next year as much as it pains me to say. And I think on the AFC side, where it's way, way more difficult to figure out who's going to get there, a team that's already said they're not going to stick with their current quarterback or their last season's quarterback. And I think they have a great roster in place in terms of their defense, their offensive line, which is great, their running attack, and some pretty nice younger receivers. If the Colts go out and get a Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, somebody, a high-end guy that even trade for Derek Carr, which I'm not sure why the Raiders would ever do that, but if they get someone to
they don't want to
replace
pay
Carr,
him $40 million.
Well, that's true. But if they get somebody who's a way bigger upgrade than Carson Wentz, I like the Colts roster a lot. So my early prediction is a Colts Cowboys Super Bowl next year in Arizona. Yeah.
Oh my God, we're going to that. We can drive.
Yeah.
Just
over
there.
Yeah.
I also picked the Cowboys actually to win this. I was picking, the picking early. I just like the plus 1,600. They're retaining their coaching staff. We think, Kellen Moore, Dan Quinn. I mean, whatever. But it just makes sense. It's an easy path. It's an easier path, and then just a few lucky things go your way, and there you are. I mean, it kind of happened for the 49ers this year, in my opinion. I think they got lucky a few times in the postseason. I think the same thing happened for the Bengals. And do you think the Bengals, and even though I thought they were great and they earned it, don't get me wrong, but ultimately there was some luck. I mean, Joe Burrow didn't throw for more than 2 touchdowns in any postseason game, and one he didn't throw for any. So, same thing. Do you think they're too high? 1,200 plus 1,200?
I guess I like, their offensive line needs a lot of work and they have a ton of cap space. So
you think?
I guess people are kind of projecting them using it the right way. And the other thing too is with their division, the Steelers are obviously going through a change of quarterback. If they somehow start the season with Mason Rudolph, which I don't think they would, you can
They're
pretty much
not.
write them off, though, even if they start off with a rookie quarterback. But they'd probably have to trade up at this point to get either Pickett or Malik Willis. Those are the two top. I hate talking NFL draft stuff before
Me too.
before the combine, before their pro days. It's a little too early. Let's just wait it out a little bit longer. But if I'm going to base off of what's the scuttlebutt is right now, they're going to have to move up. And I'm not sure if the Steelers would. They're not an organization that really strikes me as one that does that, even though they did do it recently with Devin Bush. But they're going to finish ahead of them. I think the Browns, obviously, with Baker is the huge question mark, having the offseason shoulder surgery. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy into a team led by Baker Mayfield.
I'm
So it's
not
really
buying into that.
It's Bengals versus Ravens. And especially if the Bengals do what they can to shore up their offensive line, because obviously that's the story of this postseason, or at least one of them, is how many times Burrow's been sacked, breaking the record, or tying the record. If they use their $40 million plus in cap space and go get some offensive line pieces to keep Burrow upright, especially how many more knee injuries do you need him to get? Like the ACL, the sprained MCL. So I think their path to winning the division is easy, which is why I'm okay with their current odds. And their team is really young. Their team is all under contract.
True.
So I know, like, people hate saying, oh, you're gonna see Burrow back there in the Super Bowl. I'm not saying they're a lock to get back within the next 2 or 3 seasons, but I think they're going to be perennial contenders.
Yeah, they'll be contenders. I really like the odds for the Ravens too, because one thing we all forgot about the Ravens, like Marcus Peters was injured, like there were tons of defensive injuries. On top of that, they literally had to basically put their running back committee together with spit and baling wire. I mean, they didn't have J.K. Dobbins, they didn't have Gus the Bus, like they just kept going down, and it seems to me that there's definitely a path for the Ravens as well, that we all kind of wrote them off because they were very uneven, they were very frustrating to bet on. They also were great with comebacks. I mean, they had a lot going for them, and Lamar's Lamar. We know that he is like the slipperiest quarterback. He's phenomenal, and most teams would kill to have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. Now, what about Hollywood Brown, though? Is he going to retire and become a gamer? If you're a dynasty owner, you're pissed. This is not fun. This is not good news. Like,
especially when he had a pretty good season. I know he had a good season. He kind of became the guy that we thought he was going to be when they drafted him. And I don't know, a lot of I think a lot of these guys like have these pent up frustrations from the season. They aired out. We just saw Kyler do it too, and a few other players. I'm sure we'll see more throughout the offseason. They say this stuff, and then you have somebody in the team talk to them like, "What are you doing? Like, you could still do that on the side. Like, you're young, play football, make the money there."
I think time to be a gamer.
I think he'll stick with them, and you make a great point too about Lamar. It's just so funny that we watched the postseason, and everyone's like, "Oh, the AFC." They mentioned Mahomes, they mentioned Allen, they mentioned Burrow, they mentioned Herbert. And then people seem to be forgetting, like, oh, Lamar won an MVP. He was one of the MVPs of the NFL. I don't like discounting him at all. So the Ravens,
I don't think you can.
They're as long as they have him, they'll be around. They're sticking around, and they're just a good organization that always finds guys in the draft. They always build a really solid team. But I still may be leaning towards the Bengals.
Now, what do you think about this Kyler Murray drama llama? Any team. Like the idea that Kyler Murray shouldn't be so valuable in Arizona. I've seen people saying, well, he's not that good anyway, whatever. The kid's in his 3rd year. He won a Rookie of the Year award, multiple Pro Bowls. They were awesome for most of the year. He kind of choked down the stretch, but guess what? So did Aaron Rodgers. Like, these things happen. And the idea that people are like, well, he's not that good anyway. I don't know about this BS. He's not a loser. Maybe he's not a leader. Maybe he'd rather go play baseball. I don't know, but Kyler has to stay. And if he doesn't stay, I guess he's like, they can pick up his 5th year option in May. He's not getting paid, first of all, at all. It's a joke what he's getting paid for what he's doing for that team and the money he's bringing in. So he probably does feel frustrated. Any team would be lucky to have Kyler Murray as a quarterback, in my opinion. Any team would take him. Would the Colts take him? I mean, that would be amazing.
Oh yeah.
The Niners. I mean, he is a great talent, and I think he stays in Arizona at the end of all of this.
Well,
Kyler.
Wasn't his post? Didn't he have a post about? I think like Mike Evans posted something, and that's the one connection that I
Looks
saw
like
him. He like
Tampa
so I
Bay.
don't. Did he want like Mike Evans on the Cardinals, or do he want to go to Tampa Bay and take over for Tom Brady, which is a strange like thought process because I don't
Oh.
necessarily think. I
And
mean,
if
yes,
he did, oh, fantasy gold, man. Can you imagine him in that offense?
yeah. So but I just don't see a scenario where I think what's going to happen is that they would Kyler is it's crazy. It sounds. I think he wants Cliff Kingsbury fired. I think that's what his move was to get him gone from there. But I think he's going to end up staying. And I guess it's for him staying within the NFC is the smart move because if he goes to
It's
Tampa, let's
easier
just
path.
say because it's just a way easier path. But I also and in that division is probably a little bit easier than the NFC West. I still think the Rams will be okay. Um,
Oh
but
yeah, for
but
sure. They're gonna
but
get
yeah,
Robert Woods back too. Let's not forget that.
right, right. But yeah, I mean, either way, if I'm drafting a team and Collar's on the board, I like him a lot. Obviously, going to the rushing yards, and I think he's only going to get better as a passer. I just wish that he stays just healthier. He's going to have to learn to become if he's going to be mobile, learn to slide like a Russell Wilson. Just get out of like don't every. I feel like every 8-week mark, it's like new shoulder injury for Kyler Murray, and he's missing time. But when healthy, he's a guy that you're going to have to draft.
I like Kyler and Patrick Mahomes are both baseball players, and I feel like there's the smart way that they play that comes from playing another sport. I like them. I mean, I
Mhm.
think they're both uh, they're going to be around for a while, and they're going to play for a while. But yeah, the shoulder injury, the nagging shoulder injury does get to be an issue, especially if you're putting him on your fantasy team. So he's definitely probably not going to go as high this year as he did the
Right.
previous year. Cooper Cup, does he keep it up? I mean, you look at it and you're like, God, there has to be regression. There has to be regression. But then you watch him play in the Super Bowl and like, why? He can beat everybody. He's just that good. And if Matt Stafford, he's his whoopee, and like, oh, we're down, I'll just get it to Cooper Cup, and then they win the game. I don't really see that changing. I don't really see. I mean, the Chiefs couldn't stop him. Not that the Chiefs were good, but he couldn't. He couldn't be stopped.
I
Um,
I think he's a guy that you're gonna have to like. Will there be a regression in terms of will he match every single stat category he had? Like, there's a chance he's not going to. That being said, is he going to be worthwhile to be the top receiver taken? I would say sure. I think no matter what, Matt Stafford likes, or sorry, Matthew Stafford loves throwing him the ball. And every week we're like, yeah, the defense will. There's no way they're gonna let Cooper Cup beat them. Like they're gonna figure a way to stop him. And defenses try and they still can't do it. He's just a great route runner. Stafford, they have this chemistry, and I think that goes a long way. So of course, I mean, and I think getting back Bobby Tree is only going to help him. Like I understand
Me
obviously the
too.
injury to Odell hurts, but like another great receiver, and it's just going to give him more space. So I love Cooper Cup again next year, but just don't go into it expecting another triple crown. Just go into it being like he's going to be one of the top
Well,
receivers in the league, and you're fine.
so my thought is like, if you take Cooper Cup in the first round, I still think he returns first round value. Maybe he returns
Yes,
like player
absolutely.
11 value, and you take him at 5, but you're still getting first round values. Like you're not, and he seems to be healthy. It's interesting though that those players keep tearing their ACLs in LA,
Hmm.
right? Robert Woods, Cooper Cup, OBJ. Maybe we should look into this turf, guys. Figure out what's going on.
I was
Now,
reading
if
something about that too, but with the Giants
yeah,
as well, because they have a ton of injuries. And Joe Shane said, I guess about a month ago at this point, he said that they're going to look into why they're causing the injuries. And like you just brought up too with the Rams players at SoFi, there must be something about this turf that's causing these non-contact injuries. And it's like I wonder if like more teams should just go back to installing a grass field, a
yes.
natural grass field. And I know there's drawbacks to both, but I mean, look, there's to me, there's no bigger drawback than having your top players tear a knee and be out for an entire season.
Aaron Rodgers resigns in Green Bay. Is Devontae Adams a safer pick than Cooper Cup, or would you go Cup first?
I'm not sold. I mean, is Devontae Adams definitely coming back? Like, does he want to stay there? That's the thing that scares me. And the one like I'm not also sold on Rodgers wanting to return to Green Bay. I think Denver will probably try to do whatever they can to pry him away. It goes back to what I'm just saying about Cup is obviously him and Stafford have the chemistry, and I think also with the return of Robert Woods, like I said, it's just going to make things easier for him. And like the Rams throw the ball a ton. I know the Packers do too, but there's just too many question marks with the Packers and Rodgers. Will Rodgers return? Will Adams return? If they are back, I'm sure. Look, like I wouldn't be shocked if maybe Devontae Adams has more touchdowns or something, but I think they're both probably 1 and 2. You can't go wrong either way. But if Adams leaves for a different team without Rodgers, well, then I think it's Cooper Kupp and a landslide.
Yeah, no landslide. I agree. All right, Eddie. We said we were going to do a short podcast today, and we're already at 40 minutes.
Well, we had to brag about finishing third, second in the other league.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, there's still a lot of crazy quarterback news, so we're looking ahead. Super Bowl recap. We got to brag about our good betting Sunday, so it's it's bound to happen.
Overall, we had a good day. I would say it was a good. It was a strong finish. I hope all of you guys out there finished strongly as well. I hope you played in our Extra Points arcade. I'm sure the arcade's going to be going year round. We're going to take next week off. Jen's moving. And Eddie's taking some time in Florida, and then you're gonna see some baseball content from us, I'm sure. I'm not exactly sure what form that will be, but stay tuned because we're not going to stop. Maybe we'll even keep talking football here and there because football is year round. But I don't like to talk too much about it until after the draft. Like you said, so many things change, and it feels a little premature to, talk about too many things. And I think also like the players are kind of emotional. Like a lot of this we're seeing like, oh, he's deleted all his Arizona Cardinals and he's deleted all his Baltimore Ravens. And like, they're just like, they're coming up. This happened when I was a performer, right? Like you're in a show, your show's running for 3 months and 6 days a week, you do this show and you go and you have all this energy and then you have your closing party. And the next day you wake up and you are just down. Like, you're like, God, I have to wait 5 more months until my next contract starts for my next show, or I have to audition. And you've been on this high and all of this, and then you're just like blue. And I feel like the players get this too. I mean, they're competing at this elite level. There's all this adrenaline, there's all this fandom, all of this, and then it's just over. And I feel like some of them just have like these like little emotional, things happen, a little depression. They go to their social media and they start erasing things, and
that's the issue. I guess the drawback of the social media is you post it on there, everyone sees it, and then people like us who need to for fantasy purposes and gambling purposes, we have to be like, well, what does this mean? And we know like more than likely, Kyler Murray will probably end up being an Arizona Cardinal, but it's just that this time frame, like before the workouts start up again, obviously we're still in pre-draft mode, pre-combine mode, so like there's still not a ton going on. Like the season just ended for these guys, so they're gonna obviously there's always gonna be internal team drama and stuff, and that's like going back to what I said. You put it on social media, people will react it, and makes it kind of snowballs and makes this thing bigger. So now that every single day the news cycle is like, which team for Aaron Rodgers? When is Tom Brady returning? Like Kyler Murray trade? Like so, more likely than not, none of these things will happen. But again, it's our job to alert you of this stuff and to project what could happen or what may be.
It's also our job to help you with the really, really important bets, like how long the Star Spangled Banner will be. Eddie, thank you so much for your rousing rendition. I think you helped a lot of people. We did say she could do it in under the 95.5, but it would be very difficult as a performer. We each did our version, a sample, and we went with the over, cashed that bet. We went with the over on the 6.5 seconds for Brave. We cashed that bet too. We had a great betting day on Super Bowl Sunday. So we hope all of you guys did too. Maybe you'll sing again for us, Eddie.
I mean, I'm now that we're the best, or the most well-researched national anthem podcast live stream show. I mean, that was what an incredible, I mean, the way you broke it down, then we obviously the singing, I think my singing definitely helped. And that was a bet that like I never felt more confident about. I know you were saying it'll go over, but it may not be I think you said like a smash. When the minute that started and there was a little bit of the backing and you could tell she was stretching it, I was like, we are so golden. Like I know I texted you right away. I was like, this is so good. But like, yeah, I mean, if you watched our show throughout the playoffs, not only did you probably build a great fantasy playoff team that we did live, but you also hit on a lot of your bets and you hit the over on the national anthem. So, I mean, we gave you some gold there throughout the week.
Oh, and first touchdown, jersey number under 23.5. OBJ did it for us.
Yep.
So we had a few. So our point is be sure you download our podcast and listen every week. for this unique content you can't get anywhere else. But the Extra Points Podcast Network, I have to say, being here at FSGA, I felt very proud to be a part of Extra Points Podcast Network. And you know what, Eddie? I'm setting a goal right now. We're winning an award next year. We're going to win one of these FSGA awards. We're going to win Best Audio Podcast, or we're going to win Best Video Content. I'm not sure which one, but we're winning something because we need to be an award-winning podcast network. It doesn't have to be us. I'll nominate Sal and Dave. I know they got the better pod. That's fine. People like them. They're very popular. They can win it. But Extra Points has got to be taking home some hardware. We need to be an award-winning podcast network. That is my goal.
I'd love to win an award, and I'd love to win more leagues. And I mean, look, all
The
I'll say
cash
is
is
this:
fine.
beware.
Win the money than the award. But
Other fantasy and gambling pods, beware, because this was year
Yeah.
one, and we crushed it. So I mean, like that was your warning shot, and now we're here to stay.
yeah, so sorry about it, everybody else, because we're coming for you. We're coming for you, high stakes. We're very excited, and I'm sure we're overselling ourselves.
Last place next year. Every prediction wrong.
Every prediction wrong. No, we've enjoyed you guys taking this journey with us. So enjoy your week off next week, everybody. We will be back with some form of content. Don't worry. The MLB lockout will not last forever. I guarantee there will be baseball. It might be a little bit late, but there will be baseball. And when there's baseball, we'll be here for that as well. So you guys have a great week. We've enjoyed having you with us through the football season, and more to come. So stay tuned.